So our case begins on December 1st, 2018 in Baltimore, Maryland. It's approximately 12:27 a.m. when a 52-year-old man named Keith Smith frantically calls 911. He reports that he and his 54-year-old wife were driving his 28-year-old daughter home when a panhandler stabbed his wife while she was attempting to give him money. While on the phone, Keith is rushing his wife to the Johns Hopkins Hospital at 12:48 a.m. after trying to save her life. Hospital doctors pronounce his wife dead from the stab wounds. She had been murdered. His wife was named Jacquelyn Smith. Keith told police that he was driving Jacquelyn and his daughter Valeria home after a birthday celebration for Valeria. There was a female panhandler standing there appearing to be holding a baby, which is another reason why Jacquelyn's asked her husband to pull the car over. And then a male panhandler came up and attacked Jacquelyn while she was giving the female panhandler money. Now homicide detectives are arriving because this is clearly a murder.
Yeah.
He gave the same account as he did at the hospital, but investigators couldn't help but notice one small but significant change in his story. This time, he said the male panhandler ran up and stabbed Jacquelyn multiple times through the window, then grabbed her necklace from around her neck, then her wallet from her lap. At the hospital, he claimed the robbery happened first, followed by the stabbing. So after getting this statement, the police went to the location where Keith said the murder happened. This would still be in the middle of the night. It's still dark out, but they're like, we need to go see this location. Maybe they're still hanging around. We need to go. They can't find any blood anywhere. They can't find any video surveillance footage. But both of their statements matched. At 10:30 a.m. the next morning, the police went back to the same location on Valley Street to take another look during daylight hours. Last time they looked here, it was dark.
Yeah.
But again, they don't find any physical evidence. So the police then investigated Keith and Jacquelyn's car, which was a white 2012 Audi A7. They found blood inside the front passenger door, which matches the story, and they found one set of latent prints on the exterior of the passenger side door, again, matching the story.
Okay.
There were no other prints recovered from the exterior of the car. After this, the detectives began trying to identify and locate the two suspects. Homicide alerted the homeless outreach team in an effort to find the suspects. On December 1st, detectives also notified the Baltimore Police Department's pawn shop unit of the items that Keith had reported were stolen from his wife. So if they stole her necklace, her wallet, everything,
it'd be somewhere.
They're like, okay, they're going to go turn them in somewhere for money. So on December 4th, 2018, the police went to the hospital to review surveillance footage there, and they confirmed that the three Smiths drove up to the hospital in the white Audi. They take their second formal statement, and the details of Keith's account of the stabbing were again slightly different this time. So he stated that the stabbing was simultaneous to the victim giving the female panhandler money. So the police then drive Keith and Valeria to the American Legion so that Keith and Valeria could show the detectives the exact route that they'd taken the night of the a few days earlier. Law enforcement personnel reviewed video footage from 27 cameras, and detectives were unable to locate Keith Smith's vehicle on any of the cameras.
Wow.
It was also around this time that the testing from the outside of the car print came back. The latent prints on the outside of the car were that of Keith Smith. On December 11th, 2018, police found out that Jacquelyn's credit card was being used. They discover 3 male juveniles. They reported that they found a Michael Kors clutch bag at the corner of Caroline Street and Madison Avenue at a bus stop. So the next day, the police received the cell phone information from Keith and Valeria's phones. Valeria's cell phone was pinging in a different location than Keith and Valeria said they were that night.
Okay.
Valeria's cell phone was pinging after the American Legion in the completely opposite direction, northwest of the American Legion in Druid Hill Park near the Maryland Zoo. So 3 days later, Jacquelyn's funeral is held, followed by Christmas, because now we're into December. During this time, police decided to dig up any more information they can on Keith and Valeria. No arrests happened. They're just looking for more evidence. And neighbors of Keith's in their townhome community in Aberdeen later reported that on February 4th, Keith shows up at his home with a large moving truck. He loaded it quickly the next day, and the neighbors never saw him again.
Wow.
On February 8th, 2019, the police obtained wiretaps for Keith and Valeria's cell phones. On February 12th, 2019, Keith is formally interviewed by detectives for a third time. Keith gives another slightly different version of what happened that night. Immediately upon completion of the interview, Keith got into a rental truck and drove to Winter Haven, Florida, where he requested to be relocated by his job. So he has bopped right out of Maryland. Also on February 12th, the police re-interview Valeria. When confronted with her cell phone records, Valeria said they were never in Druid Hill Park. I don't know what you're talking about. And then she quickly requested a lawyer and the interview stopped. So on February 14th, detectives speak to an unnamed source who knows Keith and Valeria. And this source tells police that Keith had asked his brother, Vic Smith, if he'd help Keith kill Jacquelyn. The source advised that the information was then given to Mr. Donald Morgan, who is a close friend of Keith Smith. The next day, the detectives now interview Donald Morgan, who tells police, yeah, okay, Vic Smith told me that he was approached by Keith to try to get rid of Jacquelyn. He interpreted that get rid meant kill her. On February 18th, law enforcement obtained a search warrant for a package that had been sent from Keith to Valeria. They intercept it. The police had previously discovered that Keith was sending her a cell phone so that she could talk freely without the wiretap. On February 19th, detectives find Vic Smith and they ask him to talk to them at police headquarters. After Vic left police headquarters, the wiretap got him calling his brother Keith. Vic asks Keith if he got his text, and Keith says no, and Vic tells Keith about the questions the police had just been asking him, and Vic warns Keith that he didn't want to talk on the phone because, you know, everything's got ears now. And he says, pay attention to your phone, man. On March 3rd, 2019, Keith and Valeria Smith are arrested in Texas. At some point after the arrest, Valeria admitted that the panhandler story was completely false and that she witnessed her own father stab his wife, Jacquelyn. On March 3rd, 2019, Keith Tyrone Smith was booked. His address was listed as Winter Haven, Florida. Keith was charged with murder, conspiracy to commit murder with Valeria Smith, assault, and dangerous weapon charges. After being caught and arrested in Texas, the two were extradited to Maryland to face murder and other charges. So in September, Valeria pleads guilty to accessory after the fact as part of a cooperation agreement with the state. She is going to testify against her father at his murder trial, but this murder trial won't begin for another 2 years, December 1st, 2021, because of COVID. On December 14th, 2021, Valeria, now 31 years old, was sentenced to 5 years in prison. On February 28th, Keith was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of his wife, plus 3 years to be served concurrently for the use of a deadly weapon. I just think
so messed up.
The whole case is so confusing. It feels good to know that the right people went to prison for this case. I mean,
correct.
I feel like very rarely do we have 100% that confirmation in these cases, but we do in this case. But I think it's so hard. You just wanted to believe them so much in their interview. They did seem so shattered. And then just the way it all went about and the lies, and it was weird. It was definitely strange.
But she was probably shattered because she was having some sort of just traumatic experience watching everything.
Right.
He obviously wanted to kill her. So he, like you said, wasn't really reacting that much.
All right, you guys, that is our case for today. We will see you guys next week with another episode and a Patreon bonus episode. I love it.
And I hate it.
Goodbye.